Hello, this is Rodney Malone. I'm doing chapter 18, which is titled Nurturing. The subtitle is Home, Mom, and Apple Pie. The author of this chapter is Dolores Haven. Let's start off by speaking about Laura Balbo. Laura Balbo was an Italian social theorist who wrote brilliantly about the key roles women play in sustaining the three sectors in modern society. She believed that home workers make the bridge between commercial services, government bureaucracies, and the family, and their paid load for those services. The level of work that these women have to display, cooking dinners to everyone's likings and taste, ensuring the kids are not being taught too fast or too slow in school, as well as making sure the family bonding properly with trips to parks or camping. In fact, economist Heidi Hartman predicts that a good home life requires about 60 hours per week. If you work a job full time, imagine a job and a half as a part time job after your full time job. I want to include that this when these women speak on nurturing, they're not only speaking about their kids, they're speaking about their husbands as well. The kicker is that these women don't get paid for these highly sophisticated, tiring, and sometimes overwhelming labor. In fact, this labor that these women do pretty much goes unnoticed because it's a woman's responsibility, I guess, in society now to keep up with the household duties. To think about the three models of home. In 1870 to 1930 was the major topic in a lot of political debate. The topic was the bridge between women's question to the labor question. Activists began to raise questions about these relationships between men and women, households, and servants. As businesses began to change to big businesses and the industrial society began to get underway, so would the attitude towards the domestic begin to change. They explored the social and economic definitions of woman's work. Most women involved in politics during 1870 and 1930 saw domestic work and family life as important, theoretical and practical issues. The years between 1870 and 1930 produced three major strategies for domestic reform. First, you have the Haven strategy. The Haven strategy. Catherine Beecher, who was the leading exponent of the home as haven, explained the technological and architectural basis for a refined suburban home beginning in the 1840s. Catherine Beecher wanted to create, in essence, a glorified mom. She wanted her to be equipped with a beautiful kitchen, adequate running water, and effective home and ventilation. That doesn't seem like much now on today's standards, but at that time there was a lot. She just wanted the mothers to have the adequate resources in order to be a good mother. Beecher suggested that the housewives devote much of their labor to becoming emotional support for their husband and inspiring mother to their children. So her idea of virtue is self-sacrifice pretty much. A woman should sacrifice her career or not having a career or her personal funds outside of the house, maybe getting together with sacrificing all that to making sure her kids and making sure her husband's happy. And at this time, with the industries rising, the industrial society becoming big, everyone started to have this attitude towards the outside as it's pretty much a dog eat dog world. And this home, which is this safe haven, is the only place kind of that the women and I mean that the men and children could come to where they won't have to be afraid of the outside, where it's love, where it's purity, where it's honesty. So the woman was supposed to provide this. So in a sense, she'd be kind of angelic. The industrial strategy. The German Marxist August Bebel, in his book Women Under Socialism, wanted to move the traditional housework into the factory. Just get rid of the domestic sphere, pretty much. He believed that their labor in the kitchen is just wasted labor and that labor could be put to good use in a factory. Bebel believed that when women began to leave the house to go to work in the factory outside the household, The household in turn would lose control of many private activities. The effects in industrialization would be general, and women would share in the gains and losses with men. The factory work he had envisioned for women were factories such as baking pies for all, laundry factories. Bevel believed that nature and biology would disappear in favor of industrial efficiency, which would be good to all. Beecher believed that you should get rid of personal touch and nature work. A child should be able to go to any daycare and they will provide the same maternal love. Basically, women are interchangeable. Wages deny traditional skills. So pretty much he was for money. We need to get these women out there. We need to get them to work. And in a sense, the women, they don't really need to nurture their children. You can just take them to a daycare and it'll serve the same purpose. The all the amount of energy and time that these women spend at home, cleaning and cooking, they can be doing it on a grand level. They could be going to these factories and washing everyone's clothes or so. Man, it's just socialism. The neighborhood strategy. Maluna Faye Pierce, she wanted to socialize housework under women control through neighborhood networks. Basically combine traditional skills with wages. Women should get paid for what they were already doing. Women believed that they were doing half the work, so they should get paid half the wages. They just have to recognize their labor to get these demands. Like you must think about it this time, all the washing machines, dishwashers, and refrigerators, etc. were not made for households. They were pretty much made for big businesses such as hotels, hospitals, and commercial laundries. Thus, the neighborhood should apply these appliances at a neighborhood scale in the community or workplace. So pretty much, the Haven strategy is far left. They don't want the women to go out to work at all. They want the women just to come in and support the kids, support the husband. The industrial strategy doesn't pretty much want the women to support the kids, want the husband. They want them out there working. And the neighborhood strategy is a combination in between. They want them. It's just in between those two. In the 1960s and 1970s, as the number of American households entering the workforce increased, so did demand for fast food. 1970, Americans spent $6 billion in restaurants or fast food, about a third of their food budget. In the year 2000, Americans spent about $110 billion, almost a 20-fold increase. Quick bio on Harlan Sanders, but you all probably would know him as Colonel Sanders. Um, Colonel Sanders started his career in 1929, and he ran a small cafe behind a gas station in Corbin, Kentucky. Around the 1950s, he became the king of takeout chicken. By the year 2000, KFC had franchised about 11,000 businesses, making about $8.9 billion worth of food per year worldwide. Colonel Sanders died in 1980 in Louisville, his hometown. Flags on the city building were flown at half staff. Great for women, right? They could get some pressure taken off of them because working women at this time were still expected to come home and perform their household duties. So they could shave a couple of hours by just bringing in some food. But there also been sightings where a lot of women worked at KFC and they were paid pretty much underpaid and they were non-union. So you kind of have to take your either sacrifice not cooking for a couple of hours or sacrifice yourself out there and getting underpaid. Women were kind of in a bad position either way. We're moving towards the socialist view of motherhood. Let's talk about Soviet motherhood first. Soviet motherhood. Women in the USSR were encouraged to bypass their care at home and join the paid labor force. Research has showed that 90% of women at this time, between the ages of 20 and 49, were in the paid labor force. So 9 out of 10 women at this time in the Soviet Union was employed. They were in the paid labor force. And as well as they was expected to come home and perform their household duties. So if you add their work and then their work at work and their work coming home, they were pretty much working about 17 hours more than a man at this time period. But also they were only getting paid about 60 to 75% of what a man was getting paid at this period on a good day. The Soviet Union also influenced other socialist countries, um, such as Cuba and China. And Cuba developed this plan called Plan Java, in which pretty much at this time food in Cuba was very scarce. And when you think about scarce food, you start thinking about the supermarket. How would the supermarkets look? Scarce food, the lines would probably be long because people will wait in line for their food. They can't bypass the food because it might not be there tomorrow. So what would you do if you're in charge of a country where you have long lines and people are waiting for food, well, mostly women, and you're trying to encourage your women to work? You see, that becomes a good product now, being at the front of the line. So what you do is you pretty much get the women who are working and give them a skipping pass. You allow them to skip to the front of the line. That's their incentive for working, as well as the wages. And when the other women who are waiting in these lines, or the other women who have this food in their hand and it gets taken out of their hand and given to the women who work, well, pretty much what they'll start doing is they'll want to go to work as well. So that was Cuba's plan Java in order to get women to work. China also had a plan. It was just the Great Leap Forward. And it's pretty much the same thing. They were trying to get women to work as well. But the bad thing about playing Java was playing Java, the factories for these women was so far off that it wasn't really as beneficial to work. If you're traveling so far out of your natural city to go work and you're getting paid low wages, well, you might be losing. So China pretty much tried to do the same thing that Cuba did, except they put the factories actually in the neighborhood, and that was the Great Leap Forward. But the women still were paid low wages, and they still work in industrial conditions. Uh, Cuba actually, in 1974, with a progressive family code, they began to try to make men share the responsibility at home, um, which is Cuban Family Code of 1974, and the code aimed at having men share women's work. In China, they wasn't so much for this. China men were pretty much totally against this, and this didn't make any leap forward in China. Charlotte Perkins Gilman. Charlotte Perkins Gilman proposed the construction of special apartment houses for employed women. Pretty much in the 1980s, neighborhood domestic reform was looked at as good business because of Charlotte Perkins Gilman. Charlotte Perkins Gilman was an American feminist, and she believed that there should be a special apartment for women and their families. Um, she believed that women require daycare and cook food after a day of work, sort of like the men's mindset when they have a wife, that they believe that the wife should take care of the kid as well as a food or dinner should be cooked for them. Now Charlotte Perkins Gilman adopted this theory, and she said, well, somebody should do that for the kids. So I guess the responsibility just keeps getting passed down to the next person. But this idea inspired a lot of people. As a matter of fact, it inspired Otto Fick, who constructed the first service house in Copenhagen in 1903. He pretty much constructed a small apartment building in which the tenants could come home and they would have food service as well as cleaning. Their apartment would already be cleaned as well as laundry would already be done for them. So it was an apartment home constructed to help actual working women. But the catch to this was he didn't actually allow children. This also inspired a lot in the United States. So between 1898 and 1930, apartment hotels were actually built in American cities, in the major American cities, and these apartment hotels actually included 3 meals per day, and less affluent women were actually provided daycare. And bed sitting rooms were actually there for the elderly, as well as they had tea rooms so the women can kind of have their time to themselves and enjoy themselves. Trader Maid was an American haven for house where American household, like American wives, actually swap chores. So it was Trader Maid. When a maid was actually tired, she could ask someone else to kind of come help do this or do that, or she was good at cleaning and the other was good at washing, and they would kind of swipe chores. And niche was a woman offering social services to each other in the neighborhood. Uh, I guess I could say women had to go through drastic changes to get to this point in society, and make and to be honest, it's crazy because I mean people still say that things aren't fair. Men and women, there's no equality, or men still get treated better than women, or men still make more high wages even though they work in the same position. And I mean that's just a subjective statement. But one thing I can say that just looking at this presentation, that things are a lot better than what they used to be. I don't think not too many people can argue with that. But I just leave this presentation with a couple of just few questions that just to think about. Um, I always wonder if the place that women used to have, is it hurting society now that women aren't home to actually take care of the chores, to actually nurture the kids the way that things were done? And is it fair to say that there's women's place? Is it fair to say that a woman should be the person who takes care of the child, or should be the person who makes sure that the house is ran correctly, make sure that the food is cooked, make sure that the husband is happy? Or does that place, is that gender based? Should we actually have men to start fulfilling those roles? Or does that place even exist anymore, given the fact of fast food and easy access to anything, and kids 5 years old now can wash clothes and fold them? I mean, you kind of look at the news and you see everything that's going on, and you see more and more women working, and you see more and more crime. And I wonder if there's a correlation, or if there shouldn't, or if that's discussed to even try to make that correlation. But there's just things to think about. I mean, we can debate about this topic all day. But this is chapter 18. This is Rodney Malone.